So today we're going to read a poem called For My People by Margaret Walker. You have this slide in Google Classroom, and hopefully you have already listened to this video, but if you haven't, go ahead and pause this. You're going to listen to that once, because as you noticed on our Big Six poetry reading strategy, we're going to read the poem 2 times before talking about it. And so you need to listen to her read it before you listen to me read it. But I didn't want to film over that video. That would be kind of silly. So let's get right to it. So obviously our very first step when we're reading poetry is we're going to read one time without doing anything, without writing on it, just read through. All right, so this is For My People by Margaret Walker. For my people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges and their ditties and their blues and their jubilees, praying their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For my people lending their strength to the years, to the gone years, and the now years, and the maybe years, washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging along, never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding. For my playmates in the clay and dust and sand of Alabama, backyards, playing, baptizing, and preaching, and doctor and jail, and soldier and school, and mama and cooking, and playhouse, and concert, and store, and hair, and Miss Chumby and company. For the crowded, bewildered years, we went to school to learn, to know the reasons why, and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when. In the memory of the bitter hours, we discovered we were black and poor and small and different, and nobody cared, and nobody wondered, and no one understood. For the boys and girls who grew up in spite of these things to be man and women, man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and play and drink their wine and religion and success and marry their playmates and bear children and then die of consumption and anemia and lynching. For my people thronging 47th Street in Chicago and Lenox, in New York, and the Rampart Street in New Orleans, lost and disinherited, disposed and happy. People filling the cabinets and taverns over in people's pockets, needing bread and shoes and milk and land and money and something, all our own. For people walking blindly, spreading joy, losing time, being lazy, sleeping when hungry, shouting when burdened, drinking when hopeless, tired, tied, shackled, tangled among ourselves by the unseen creatures who tower over us omnisciently and laugh. For my people, blundering and groping and floundering in the dark churches and schools and clubs and societies, associations and councils and committees and conventions, distressed and disturbed, deceived and devoured by money-hungry, glory-craving leeches, preyed on by facile force of state and fad and novelty, by false prophet and holy believer. For my people, standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people of loving freedom come to grow. Let a beauty full of healing and strength of final clenching be the pulsing of our own spirits and blood. Let the martial songs be written. Let the dirges disappear. Let a race of men now rise and take control. All right, so we've read this poem. We've read it we've read it twice. Read it once with me, once with our court justice. And now it's time to actually start the conversation about the poem and about what's really going on. So let's go back Our big six, right? Title, speaker, theme, tools, turns, and paraphrase. Our title is For My People. And the questions, remember the questions they wanted us to ask are, did the words appear in other places? Is it a line in the poem? And what does it highlight? For me, let's see. The words for my people occur over and over again in the poem. They are a cry, a repetition, a steady beating heart. And I think that's very intentional. When I say it's a steady beating heart, as I read this poem, I hear, for my people everywhere, for my people lending their strength, for my playmates, for my people, for my people. I feel it like a clenching heartbeat of this steady tone. We're gonna keep going. And there's such a rhythm to this poem, and we'll get there when we talk about tools, but repeatedly playing in their dirges, their ditties, their blues, their jubilees, playing their prayers. It's very, very rhythmic. Can you hear me snapping? So I think that's all very intentional. It's a heartbeat. It's something serious. It's meaningful. They're doing it all on purpose. Nothing is on accident in poetry. Because here's the thing about poetry, friends. Poems are short. This is actually a longer poem. But poems in general are short. And so if you're writing something that is going to be really short and concise, then you can't put any filler in. It's all super important. And so when you see an author including something in a poem, take notice. That's something important. All right, let's look at our speaker. Our speaker in this poem is most certainly, we know it's an African American person. I'm assuming it's a woman. And she is someone that grew up in Alabama. And she is frustrated for good reason, right? She's very frustrated for good reason. Love, hate, fear. I feel like she fears this injustice. She fears the mistreatment. Attitude toward the subject. I'm feeling like she's kind of fed up, but she's ready to take a stand. So the speaker is likely, here, let me spell repetition correctly. An African American woman. She appears to fear the injustice, but she is strong, ready to change the tide. She's very strong. It's not a weak poem. It's a very strong poem, and I get the strength, y'all, from this heartbeat, from this heavy repetition and this rhythm. All of that creates this character that's very strong, and you know that this person is going to make it. All right, our theme. It's kind of hard to find a theme of this poem, I think. As you're reading it, you get a lot of ideas, and it's very, it's a lot. And if I had more time with y'all and didn't want this to be a super, super long video, what I would do is I would go through each, and we would paraphrase each little small section and talk about it in turn, but we don't have time for that. So instead of that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a hint. In this particular poem, excuse me, y'all. I promise, it's allergies. In this particular poem, we have every line, every stanza starts with the phrase, for something. It's for my people, for my playmates. Here it's for the cramped years. We're talking at a time, but they all start with for, right? until we hit this last stanza. And then it says, let a new earth rise, let another world be born. And I think therein lies our theme, right? It's where everything sort of changes and we have a different outlook, and here's what needs to happen next. It's our overall message, right? It's a change of heart. Okay, let a people of freedom come to growth. Okay. So, and this is, we could workshop this theme, but this is just my very first reading of it. Well, not first. This is my, I guess, third sort of. Math is hard, but just off the cuff, let's see. The theme of, quote, for my people is that it is time something changed. A new quote generation to rise. And that is obviously very, very basic, and it's not perfect, but that's what we're going to go with for now. All right, let's look at tools. Under tools, this is our literary devices, right? This is, let's scooch down here so we can look at it. What poetic devices are used most frequently? Which tools repeat and create a consistent image? And what are the most powerful metaphors? Now, this particular poem is not very heavy on metaphors. There are a couple, but they're not very heavy. But there is a lot of repetition, there is a lot of rhythm, and there's a lot of, what was the other one I was thinking of as we were reading? I'm not getting it. All right, we'll start with those. All right, so Margaret Walker uses tons of repetition and rhythm. We're going to actually, I want to separate this out. Alliteration, repetition, and rhythm. In quote, for my people. The use of these elements creates a vivid movement in the poem. Our strong heartbeats. So this is what we have going. We have the strong heartbeat. For my people, for my people, for my people, for my people. Alrighty, so we are going to keep trekking. We got this question, what is our turn? So this is where our tone sort of shifts. And I really felt it very strongly in this poem, the turn. So I just want to go over it a little bit, and then we'll hit that turn. So, for my people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges, their ditties, their blues, their jubilees, praying on their knees nightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. Here, right here, essentially it's saying, we're going to sort of start this paraphrase game. For my people who are alone, praying. But I also want to point out here that this is very happy. It's a very positive vibes. We got these positive vibes here. Despite everything, we still got these positive vibes. For my people, lending their strength to the years, to the gone years, to the now years, to the maybe years. All these things. It's a list. We're listing for my people who are working hard. Yet again, though, I'm still getting these good vibes. Good vibes. We're rocking, we're rolling. For my playmates in the clay and the dust and sand in Alabama, right? So then it's going back into childhood. For my childhood. And yet again, that's that happy, nostalgic feeling. Happy, nostalgic. For the cramped, bewildered years, we went to school to learn, to know the reasons why, the answers. All of this, even though we've got this cramped, the word cramped is kind of a negative term, we're still happy. There's still this sort of lighthearted feeling of our heartbeat. We've still got this steady heartbeat going. For the cramped, bewildered years, we went to school to learn, to know the reasons why and the answers to, and the memory of, and the bitter hours when we discovered we were black and poor and small and different and nobody. We still have this heartbeat and it's still going. There's just this intensity. All right, so for the years learning, we're at school, we still have this sort of lighthearted but sad now. We're getting this sort of like small little bitty turn. And then it says, for the boys and girls who grew up in spite of these things, to be man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and play and drink and religion and success, to marry and bear children and die of consumption. And there it is, lynching. So like we have this it's not a sudden shift. We have, these cramped and bewildered years of learning and nobody understands, right? And then even we come in here, it's happy. It's lighthearted again. And then we hit this. We sort of hit this wall. For my people, thronging 47th Street in Chicago and Lenox Avenue, in New York and Rampart Street in New Orleans, dispossessed and happy. People filling the cabinets and taverns in other people's pockets and needing bread and shoes and milk. And suddenly our intensity changes. We're no longer happy and lighthearted. Suddenly, we are filling other people's pockets, needing bread and shoes and milk and land and money and something all our own. And we could keep on, and we could keep reading, and we can keep searching for the change in tone, but you have to read it and feel it and know it. This poem is beautiful and heartbreaking and sad and powerful. So the question is, what is changing that tone? In stanza, watch Miss Withers try to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. In stanza 5, there is a small shift when, quote, nobody understands. Then the big shift, like an avalanche, the word lynching, right? That word hits you like a punch, y'all. Sad part of our history, y'all. Promise I can spell words. All right, y'all, we're almost done. Now we just have to sort of paraphrase so we understand the plot of the poem. Essentially, this poem is an ode, and I don't mean that like it's that genre of poetry. I just mean it's an ode in the most loose meaning of the word to the speaker's people, the people struggling. It is begging them to take a stand, make a difference, and change the world. Even though it's hard. Because, according to the poem, right, it isn't an easy situation. People blundering and groping and floundering in the darks of churches and the clubs and societies and associations and councils. People are hiding. For my people staring, trying to fashion a better way from the confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves and their countless generations. So it's not going to be easy. This new world is not going to be easy. But this poem is urging us to try to find it, to try to reach a new level of joy and happiness and be better for one another. All right, so your task after you've finished listening here is to use that poem as a guide and as a model, and you're going to write your own. So after reading and analyzing the poem For My People, which we've done the analysis together, pick any social justice issue and write your own poem using For My People as a model. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to pick, and you can just Google social justice issues 2020 and a bunch of them will pop up. You pick one that you feel like you can write a little short poem about, and you are going to follow the model of this poem. And I gave you the first 4 stanzas so you can literally see it. But in stanza 1, I want you to do 5 lines of vivid description, and it's got to be an opening. So however you want to do that, 5 lines of vivid description. Then you're going to do stanza 2 will be 5 lines of listing. So you can see over here she's listing washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, all of those things, the heartbeat, feeling. All right, then stanza 3, you're going to do 5 lines of vivid description of a setting. So whatever you want your setting to be, you're going to sort of describe it here. And then stanza 4 is going to be 5 lines of metaphors, repetition, and that's going to be your closing. So it'll be a little bit different than this one, right? Because this is not the full poem, but I do want you to have some sort of introduction that might introduce who you're talking to, because we're going to use this same idea, this For My People, right? So, for my people, blah, 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 blah. Give me some sort of vivid description of a set or of a person. Then we're going to do stanza 2 is some listing, whatever it needs to be. Stanza 3 will be a vivid description of a setting, but it needs to be in the same format. So you need to remember that steady heartbeat feeling. And then finally, stanza 4 will be 5 lines of metaphors, repetition, and then that needs to close it and wrap it up. Now, this is not going to be perfect, but I am looking for you to follow the directions, number 1, and be creative. Think about how we can use language the same way Margaret Walker did. All right, thank you so much. Email me if you have any questions, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.